What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 2 of the Downtown Browntown podcast. I am your host, Downtown Brown. Today, we're going to go over all of the recent moves that the Bucks made in the draft as well as free agency, along with a very unfortunate move that they did not end up making. So before we get into that, just want to remind you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date on all of my future content when it is posted. And if you enjoy episode 2, please hit the like button as well. We'd greatly appreciate it. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the NBA draft. The Bucks had 2 second-round picks in the 2020 NBA draft. They acquired the 45th pick from the Orlando Magic for 2 future second-round picks. And they also had Mr. Irrelevant, the 60th pick in the NBA draft, which they acquired via the Jrue Holiday trade. So with the 45th pick in the NBA draft, the Milwaukee Bucks selected Jordan Nwora, forward out of Louisville. I really like this guy's game. He's a 6'8" swing forward who can shoot the lights out of the ball and was a 2-year starter at Louisville, averaged 18 points a game. And he seems like a perfect fit for the Bucks offense. I think he's gonna step in and contribute this year. Now we don't know what's gonna happen. Obviously, you can't bank on second round picks, but the Bucks have drafted pretty well in the second round, especially in recent years with guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Sterling Brown. And I know that we all don't love Sterling Brown, but he proved to be a decent contributor for the Bucks when they needed him sometimes, and he started the whole Detroit playoff series in 2019 and games 1 through 4 against Boston in that series as well in 2019. So I really like this pick by the Bucks. He's got a dog mentality to him. He just seems like he wants to prove that he can be in this league and show that he can be a value contributor, especially to a contending team. He's already working out with the guys with Middleton and a couple other Bucks, and he just seems like a perfect fit for our offense. Defensively, he has his struggles. He is athletic, so he can move his feet pretty well, but he has gotten beat from time to time. So we'll see how his defense goes. He's not one of those guys where you're going to have to hide his defense and basically be a guy who would be unplayable in certain situations because he's such a liability on the defensive end. He's definitely not that kind of player. So I really think that he can be a solid contributor to this Bucks team this year, especially down the road. I mean, we're always looking for guys that can make shots, and he definitely is one of those guys. He's very confident about his game, and I really like him as a player. So I think it's a great fit. He's got a higher floor, and he definitely has a lot of upside. So his ceiling is relatively high as well for a second round pick like him. So really like the pick for the Bucks, and can't wait to see Jordan Nwora on the court. So with the 60th pick, which they acquired via the Jrue Holiday trade, the Bucks selected Sam Merrill, guard out of Utah State. Now, Sam Merrill, we pretty much know what this guy is. He is a dead-eye shooter, and you're going to notice a trend here through this episode as the Bucks really targeted shooting in the draft as well as free agency. And why would you blame them, right? I mean, it's turned into a three-point shooting league, and clearly the Bucks, the last 2 playoff runs, have not gotten it done from the three-point line. So I'm very glad to see some shooters come in. And Sam Merrill is definitely one of those guys. He is a career 42% three-point shooter in his 4 years at Utah State. Started 3 of those 4 years, and the dude can get you a bucket. He can hit catch and shoot threes. He can hit threes off the dribble. He can hit threes off of a pick and roll. He's a great passer as well, and seems to be one of those guys who maybe if we've got a couple injuries at the guard position, he could step in and contribute for him. And like I said, you know what Sam Merrill is. His ceiling is not high at all, but he's still got a respectable enough floor where he can come in and give you some solid minutes. And if he's making shots, he's going to get time. I mean, I could see him down the road potentially having a Kyle Korver type role for this team, where Kyle played anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes a game last year. He'd get like 2 5 to 6 minute runs, one at like the middle part of the second quarter, and then one towards the end of the third quarter and leaking into the early fourth. So I like the fit for them. He is a defensive liability though, and we'll see what he can do at the NBA level. He's one of those guys where you do worry that his defense is so bad that he might be unplayable in certain situations. So we'll see if they can mask it and put some lineups around Sam where he can be a valuable contributor to this team. I'm not expecting much from him, but again, you never know. So I like the Bucks strategy that they took in this draft with taking one guy with more of a high ceiling with a little more variability. I mean, Nwora could be a bust, obviously, you never know, but I like how they took more of an upside pick and then more just a steady, solid player pick. So the Bucks needed some low salary second round picks to fill out that back end of the bench, and I think they got two really solid choices there. I know everyone likes player comps, so I'm going to give you two player comps, or one for each of our draft picks here. So Jordan Nwora, his comp to me is a Harrison Barnes, 3-point shooter who can also get to the hole. His defense is, so-so. It's not great, but it's not bad at all. You can definitely stick him out there, and you're not going to worry about him on the defensive end. So if Jordan Nwora could step in and be a Harrison Barnes level player in this league, we would be absolutely thrilled about that. So that's mine for Jordan Nwora. My player comp for Sam Merrill is JJ Barea. JJ Barea, again, just a guy who you can rely on. You know what he's going to do for you game in and game out. Doesn't have the high ceiling, is a liability on defense, but if you got some injuries, he can get you some buckets. And JJ Barea was a huge contributor to the 2010 Dallas Mavericks, who beat the Miami Heat the first year of the big three of LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. So if he could step in and provide that kind of role for the Bucks, it'd be great for them. So I really like what the Bucks did in the draft, and we'll see how these guys pan out. So now let's get into free agency. We'll start with the bad news, and we'll move on to the good news. So the bad news is obviously that the trade for Bogdan Bogdanovic did not go through. There are numerous reports out there saying multiple different things as to why the trade fell through. One of them being that the Bucks were worried about tampering charges, so that they backed off of it. And the Bucks are currently under investigation by the NBA for potential tampering charges for the leaked Bogdan Bogdanovic sign and trade. So that's definitely one of the potential reasons there. Another one is that Bogdan's agent was hesitant about pulling the trigger with this deal because they wanted more money, and which could very likely be because Bogdan signed a 4-year, $72 million offer sheet with the Atlanta Hawks, which the Kings did not match. The deadline is today. So Bogdan Bogdanovic is an Atlanta Hawk. So I know it's only a couple $1 million difference. The reported contract, even though there wasn't like official numbers that the Bucks were going to give him, was a $14 to $15 million annual average salary. So obviously it's a couple more million. You got 18 million a year with the Hawks, so that could potentially have been a reason. But you think those things would have been ironed out and agreed to by Bogdan's camp when these discussions were happening, versus after the media leaks it, then they're like, oh, well, that's not enough money. Like, we didn't hear about that. Like, you think they must have had those conversations. So I go back and forth on that one. Another interesting report is that the media, aka Woj in this instance, who was the one who broke the news, might have twisted his words a little bit and said that the Bucks had a deal in place when really it was just something that the Bucks were looking into and didn't necessarily even contact the Sacramento Kings to make this trade offer. So that one is very interesting because obviously there's many different reports out there that the media wants Giannis to leave Milwaukee. They want him to go to Miami or Golden State or the Lakers just to get him out of Milwaukee so he can have more publicity and maybe have a better chance to win a title or what have you. It just seems like that's what the media is at least the mainstream national media. So that report is very interesting to me. I'm not quite sure about it, but at the end of the day, I don't know if we'll ever know what happened. And it's truly disappointing that this trade didn't happen because myself and all Bucks Nation was extremely ecstatic about this trade. I mean, Bogdan would have been an absolute perfect fit for this team. A guy who can go get you a bucket, not a bad defender at all, is a great pick and roll player. Would have been great with Giannis, friends with Giannis as well. They both wanted to play together. So in an offseason where the Bucks really needed to have a slam dunk here and do everything that they possibly could to convince Giannis to sign that supermax before December 21st, this is not the time to be making mistakes like that. Obviously, maybe the Bucks didn't make a mistake. Like I said, maybe it was the media's fault. In that report, they're saying that multiple teams around the league were very frustrated that the Bucks were already in talks with the Kings and that they told on the Bucks to the NBA saying, hey, free agency is not for 3 more days. The Bucks can't be talking about sign-and trades. So who knows at this point, but it's extremely upsetting that Bogdan will not be suiting up for the Bucks next year. And unfortunately, the Bucks just had to move on, and they did. So now we will go over the free agent signings that the Bucks made. We'll start with a guy that they had in-house that they retained. The Bucks signed Pat Connaughton to a 3-year, $16 million contract. His 3rd year is a player option. The deal was originally reported to be a 2-year, $8 million contract, with the 2nd year being a player option. So just thinking of that, you're like, okay, 2 years, $8 million, but then we gave him 3 years, $16 million. That's double the salary for just 1 extra year. Why would the Bucks do that? Especially for a player like Connaughton, who I don't know if he deserves that kind of money. So the Bucks made the right decision with a 3-year, $16 million contract, and here's why. So the Bucks needed to sign Connaughton to a contract where he had at least 2 years of guarantees in order to access their early bird rights. So basically what that means is when NBA teams are over the salary cap, they can re-sign players using this bird rights when they're over the cap. But it has to meet certain qualifications. So it has to be 2 years of guaranteed money. So the Bucks' original deal was a 2-year with a 2nd-year player option. So that wouldn't have fell under their bird rights. They would have had to use their $9 million mid-level exception to account for that contract. So we would have used close to half of our mid-level exception for Pat Connaughton's contract, which we would not have wanted to do. It would have limited our flexibility of making other moves. Some of those moves that we made after Pat Connaughton. So the Bucks made the right decision. I think they overpaid for him a little bit, but at the end of the day, Connaughton's a solid player who he gives you good minutes, a good spark off the bench, and he has been relatively important to this Bucks team the last 2 years, especially in the regular season. Just providing spark on defense. He's always around the ball, grabbing rebounds. And he's just a good guy, loves the city of Milwaukee. Him and Giannis are buddies. Obviously doesn't hurt in the situation that the Bucks are in. So I'm glad that he's back. I think we overpaid slightly, but glad that Pat's back on the Bucks. So after that, the Bucks signed Bobby Portis to a 2-year, $8 million contract. A couple things about Bobby Portis. He's 6'10". He was drafted by the Bulls in 2013. The Bucks were rumored to be interested in him back then as well. So this move doesn't necessarily surprise me. Wasn't someone that was on my radar at all, but I think he's a good fit. He's very active when he's out there. He has a lot of passion. He plays with a lot of heart and passion out there, but sometimes to his detriment. He got suspended in his last year in the Bulls for 8 games for punching Nikola Mirotic, a former Buck, as well, when they were both on the Bulls. So sometimes he gets a little too emotional, and that gets the best of him. He's also had a couple flagrant twos in games that have caused him to be kicked out of the game. So I like the fit. He's a 10-point-per-game scorer over his career. He rebounds pretty well for his position, 6 rebounds a game over his career as well. He shot 35% from 3 last year and has shot 40% from 3 in a season. So that's what the Bucks need. And he's a versatile player who should fit really well with our offense. Defensively, he is not bad. his defensive rating was 107 last year, which what that means is per 100 possessions, he gave up 107 points. So obviously it's a little bit above average, but there's a lot that goes into that. He was on a crappy New York Knicks team last year who was in rebuild mode, and that's not a good fit for a Bobby Portis. He needs to be on a team who can contend for a title, and which the Bucks obviously are. So I think defensively he's going to be a lot more motivated. He's kind of hit rock bottom in his NBA career as well. He signed a 2-year, $31 million contract with the Knicks last offseason, and they cut him this offseason. They only guaranteed him 1 year of that contract. So he signs a 2-year, $4 million contract. I mean, if this goes awry for him, he could be out of the league. So he's going to be motivated. He's going to be determined to make an impact for this team. And I think he's going to fall more into that. I know what my role is on this Bucks team. We're trying to win a title. He's never been on a title contending team. So I think he's a good fit. Defensively, like I said, he moves his feet well. He's active, but he's been known to lack some effort on the defensive end and using most of that passion on the offensive end. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits in. But again, for the price we paid him, I think it's a great signing. He's going to get a lot of minutes for this Bucks team. We lost a lot of our front court depth by losing Robin Lopez, Marvin Williams, and Ersan Ilyasova. So he's going to be one of the first guys off the bench, and I think they're going to run some lineups where they've got Portis at the 4 and Giannis at the 5, or even run some really small lineups when Giannis comes off the floor with Portis at the 5, so and maybe Middleton at the 4. So overall, I'm excited about having Bobby Portis on this Bucks team, and I think he's going to contribute well. So I like the signing there. The next move that the Bucks made was they signed DJ Augustin to a 3-year, $21 million contract. DJ Augustin has been in the league for quite some time. He was drafted in 2008 by the Hornets, and this guy can get you buckets. He is a very solid offensive player. Let me just make sure I've got this right. He averaged 10 points per game his last 3 years with the Orlando Magic. Has shot 40% from 3 multiple seasons. He dipped a little bit last year at 35%. He is 33 years old, so he's getting a little bit up there. I'm a little worried that 3-point percentage this year could be a blip instead of a trend, or we would want it to be not to be a trend. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I mean, he shot really well in the bubble. I think that really stuck out to the Bucks. And as you know, we played the Magic in the playoffs last season, and he played really well, especially when they beat us in Game 1. He can make shots off the dribble, pick and roll, catch and shoot. He's been a 40% 3-point shooter from a catch and shoot perspective in his career, which is outstanding. He's going to get a lot of great shot opportunities with this Bucks team when Giannis is driving in the middle of the lane. He's got the wall surrounding him, kick it out to Augustin, and he should be able to make those shots. And I really like the fit offensively. And again, you can see kind of a trend here. The Bucks really are swinging for offense and giving up some of that defensive strength that they've had in the last 2 seasons. DJ Augustin is basically a liability on defense. He's 5'11". He's a small guy, and you've got to find the right matchups for him, or teams are really going to exploit him. When he's on the court, teams are going to go after him, and that worries me because it might make him unplayable in crunch time situations in the fourth quarter of big regular season and playoff games. And offensively, the Bucks need a guy like that to close out games in crunch time. But if his defense is not up to snuff, then he might cost himself to sit on the bench in those moments, and that hurts. So again, I like the fit. I think his offense is a little more explosive than George Hill's. He's a great driver of the ball. George Hill was very underrated driving the ball as well. I don't think many people gave him enough credit. George Hill was a more consistent 3-point shooter, but he was more of a catch and shoot guy. DJ Augustin has way more upside in terms of being able to create and make his own shot from 3. So I think he's going to give the Bucks more versatility as a backup point guard. And I think they're going to run a lot of lineups where they've got Holiday and Augustin in, because they're going to hope that Augustin can guard the weaker of the guard positions on the opposing side, whereas Holiday can lock down the stud guard that teams have. Obviously, there's teams that have multiple stud guards, so we'll see what happens with Augustine there. But overall, I like the fit offensively, and I think they overpaid for him a little bit again, though. The Bucks used $7 of their $9 million of that mid-level exception on DJ Augustine, and I was shocked by the contract, to be honest, especially locking him up for 3 years when he's 33 years old. I thought he was a prime candidate to be a vet minimum guy, a 1 year, $2 million contract, like we signed Wesley Matthews to last year. So that, again, was very surprising. But sometimes, especially in an offseason like this where the free agent market is not extremely fluid, it's definitely not a top-heavy market. So maybe the Bucks had to overpay him a little bit to ensure that he was going to sign with them, because there were multiple other contending teams, according to reports, that said they were interested in DJ Augustine. So the Bucks clearly valued this guy, and they did what they could to bring him in. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Next, the Bucks signed Bryn Forbes to a 1 year deal. I think it's a vet minimum. I don't think the reports are out there yet. But like I said, offensive player. He's a great three-point shooter. Bryn Forbes in his career has averaged 11 points per game the last 2 years as a starter for the San Antonio Spurs. He started a lot of games. He's got a lot of experience in a Greg Popovich offense that is similar in ways to Coach Budenholzer's system. So I think that Bryn Forbes is a prime candidate to start at the two guard position for us. I think him and Dante will be battling it out. I think Dante will get it originally, and he's got to prove to the Bucks that he can hold it. Otherwise, I think they're going to turn to Forbes pretty quickly, because he's got a lot of experience in this league. He started playoff games. He started many regular season games. So they're not going to be they're going to be quick to turn to Forbes if Dante doesn't produce for them. So again, he is not a great defender at all. He's a very undersized two guard at 6'2". He's very built, but he does not move his feet well, and that concerns me. Again, if the Bucks do end up starting Forbes, they're going to have to mask him a little bit on defense. I think they can do that, but in terms of playoffs, which really is what the focus needs to be for this Bucks team, they're going to struggle to get him in fourth quarters of those games, just like DJ Augustine. So I really like the fit. Experience always helps, especially in a Greg Popovich offense. He can shoot the lights out of it, though. He is a 40% three-point shooter for the last 2 years. So, I mean, you got to like that. I mean, the Bucks clearly upgraded shooting, and that alone could mask those defensive efficiencies that I said before. You know, the Bucks maybe just said, hey, we focused a little too much on defense these past 2 years. We still think we have the defensive talent to be a middle of the pack to maybe a top 10 defensive team with Giannis, Brook Lopez, Middleton, Holiday, great defender, Torrey Craig, which we will get into in a second here. But clearly they're trying to get guys who can make shots, and I think they did that. And again, Forbes is going to be a good fit for us. I'm excited to see what he can do. Let's just see if we can mask his defensive deficiencies a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. With the last signing that the Bucks made, they signed Torrey Craig from the Denver Nuggets to a 1 year deal. I think it's a vet minimum as well. I've not seen the contract details yet, but unlike the other guys that we've talked about, Torrey Craig is pretty much the opposite. He is a nasty defender, an amazing defender who can defend positions 1 through 4. He's 6'7", 220. He's started a lot of games for the Denver Nuggets the past couple of years, and I'm excited to see what he can do. I really think that he could be that two guard for us in the crunch time of these playoff games if he can hit enough shots and really provide that defensive spark, which I think he will. He has been a very big piece to this Denver Nuggets team the last couple of years, especially in the playoffs. He played really well in the bubble last year. I saw him live in January when the Bucks played the Denver Nuggets, and he was hitting shots. He had 11 points that game, 5 rebounds. He's active. He's very limited offensively. He can't create his own shot, and he has a very bad mid-range game. But at this point, that's not what we need. DJ Augustine has a good mid-range game. Jrue Holiday's got a good mid-range game. We picked up on that a little bit. Craig just needs to be able to hit some open threes at 35% or plus, and I think that's going to be a slam dunk signing for the Bucks. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes for this team. Denver wanted to keep him around, but they decided to pull his qualifying offer, and that was quite surprising to me. And right when I saw that report by Woj, I said, hey, the Bucks should go get this guy. He is just a perfect fit. I think he might even be a better defender than Wesley Matthews. He's definitely quicker on his feet, and he's a lot younger than Wesley Matthews. So I really think that he might end up being the starting two guard for us, and is going to play anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes a game because they're going to need his defense out there. He can guard that top guard instead of Middleton, so Middleton can rest up a little bit and save more of his energy for the offensive end. I really like Craig's game a lot, and I'm super excited to have him on the Bucks. A lot of guys on Denver said that they love this kid and that they're really going to miss him, and he was a big spark plug for them. So overall, super excited about him. He's probably my favorite signing out of all the guys, just because I think he fits in with this team perfectly. A 3-and-D guy who is just going to really work his ass off to get minutes and keep those minutes as well. And he's out there to prove himself. He was very disappointed that the Nuggets pulled the qualifying offer from him. He tweeted about it. He was like, I'm very surprised about this. And he's excited to be in Milwaukee on a title contending team. So I think this is the best signing that the Bucks made. So overall, this is our Bucks team. I think they could maybe make one smaller move. There's been multiple reports where they don't really have any more money to do anything, but they're also interested in picking up Nicholas Batum, who was waived by the Charlotte Hornets because his contract was astronomical, and he is a declining player who has barely played the last couple seasons. He had a nice run in Portland there, which got him to get a max contract by the Charlotte Hornets and never really produced for them. So he's a good offensive player, can shoot the three well. Again, not a great defensive player, so keep an eye out for that as one potential guy that the Bucks could sign. But other than that, this is our Bucks team. I'm really excited to see what this team can do, and especially roster construction wise, the Bucks have a lot of decisions to make. Coach Budenholzer has got to get these lineups situated and figure out how these guys can fit into their offensive and defensive schemes, because the Bucks had a lot of continuity the last few years, and that helps for developing lineups and getting chemistry with guys. But especially in the COVID world that we live in, there's going to be less interaction with the players, and the Bucks are going to have to figure out how to gel with this team and to really make these guys contribute. So overall, after the botched Bogdan Bogdanović deal, I think we rebounded pretty well. Still, obviously, we didn't really match what we were missing from Bogdan, but I think the Bucks did as good as they could from that whole disaster. So overall, I think that this team is slightly better than the team we had last season. I think a lot of that improved success will lie on Jrue Holiday. I think the main reason why we overpaid for Jrue Holiday and traded from the Pelicans is because he's going to give us that burst in the playoffs. He's going to be more reliable. I think regular season wise, that Jrue Holiday and Eric Bledsoe are pretty similar. I think Jrue Holiday's offense is still a tier above him, but we know what kind of player Eric Bledsoe was in the playoffs, and it was terrible. He averaged 10 points a game the last two playoff runs and shooting 20% from three. That is horrible. So Jrue Holiday has limited playoff experience, but when they made the playoffs a couple seasons ago, they were the 6th seed. They played the 3 seed Portland Trailblazers. They swept them. And Jrue Holiday locked down Damian Lillard, who was not the all NBA level player that he is now, but he was still an all-star level player, and Jrue Holiday played extremely well in that playoff run. They ended up losing the next series to the Golden State Warriors, but still, in the limited playoff runs that Jrue Holiday has had, he has excelled in those moments. And I've been watching a lot of highlights of him the past few days, and one thing I loved about Eric Bledsoe is that he was very crafty when he was driving to the hole. Even sometimes, I know sometimes that he would just freak the fuck out and be like, oh, I'm running, there's 3 guys coming at me, I'm just gonna chuck the ball, and it's out, turnover. Great, nice job, Bledsoe. Jrue Holiday doesn't do that. Jrue Holiday is so much more reliable as an offensive player, as a playmaker, as someone who can run the offense. And he's very crafty at making those tough layups, reverse layups, dunks, using his body to shield the centers who are trying to block him. I was very impressed at his offensive skill set. And he has a nice little step back 3 too that he can really hit. So I didn't really know that about his game until I've been watching a lot of highlights of him. And it just gets me so excited to see what he can do with this Bucks team. I think that's just such a great fit for the Bucks. And like I said, our success next year really depends on Jrue Holiday being that steady point guard for us in the playoffs. I don't think the Bucks are going to steamroll through the regular season like they have the past 2 years. Will they get the number 1 seed? We'll see. Obviously, the Bucks did announce that they're not having fans to start the season, and the Bucks are one of those teams who thrived off those fans. You could definitely tell. I went to so many games the last few years, and they really got going when that crowd would get loud and in crucial situations. So, and we saw in the bubble too that the Bucks just lacked some energy sometimes, and that could have been because of no fans. So I don't think the Bucks are going to steamroll through the regular season. They could still get the 1 seed for sure, but it could be anywhere from the 1 seed to the 4 seed, to be completely honest with you. All that matters is that playoff run. And clearly, with the moves that the Bucks made, they are targeted towards making a deep playoff run and contending for a title, making the NBA Finals, and trying to win a title with Giannis. And that's what they've got to do. So, again, can't wait for the season. Next episode, I'm going to talk about some key things that the Bucks need to do to improve from last season. I'm going to talk about some potential lineups that the Bucks are going to throw out there, and just some more schematic things that I think the Bucks need to improve on to be a better team. I hope you guys enjoy episode 2. Go Bucks.